resistance to insults. Our interest in this area relates, perhaps initially surprisingly, to our shared political values. Between 2016 and 2019, a commitment to working for a socialist Labour government was not just something we talked about, but something we were both actively engaged in, not least through face-to-face and online activism and attendance at Labour Party events. During this time, we observed and experienced ourselves many insults towards those actively supporting a socialist agenda under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. At a previous autoethnography conference in 2019, I reported on some of my personal experience in a paper entitled "You're Either a Liar or Insane: Insults in Twitter Sphere." After more joint presentations and many discussions, we recently secured a book contract with Policy Press as part of their 21st Century Standpoint series. The book, Insults, Social and Emotional Impacts, includes a chapter entitled "Insults as the Highest or Lowest Form of Wit." More of that now.
Sometimes funny, sometimes cathartic, most times offensive, insults often have profound consequences for individuals or groups, impacting detrimentally on human action. Insulting or being insulted is an everyday auto/biographical activity and experience in that it always involves self and other. It is an emotional experience which can come from and or evoke anger and disgust, humour or dismissal. What constitutes an insult is subjective, and what might be perceived as rude and or deeply distressing to some is viewed as humour, as evidence of wit by another.
Please excuse us just a minute.
Next slide, please.
This is a picture of Morecambe and Wise, two famous British comedians active from the early 1940s until the mid-1980s. For a reason never explained, many of their sketches took place while they were in bed together. This is a picture of Tracey and I in bed together. The day we wrote this paper.
Irving Goffman noted that insults, cracks, or remarks set up the possibility for a counter-riposte or comeback. Indeed, in many cultures, within many subgroups, insults are part of a jocular exchange, banter, a form of mucking around. Within groups, as well as offering a way of jostling and one-up personship, insults, or similarly in-jokes or shared jokes, can bring cohesiveness and a sense of belonging. Relatedly, insults may be used as a term of endearment, as terms of endearment, as in the case sometimes of nicknames or a gentle ribbing.
Calm down, Tracey, you're getting hysterical now.
In the UK in particular, insults are seen almost as an art form. Our search of Amazon.co.uk found over 50 books with titles such as 450 one-liner insults and put-downs, funny put-downs and horrible insults that will win any argument.
Studies of language have demonstrated the importance of acknowledging the linguistic identities of different groups and the voicehood of speakers.
Yawn, she's a professor, you know, a right old clever box.
For many groups, insults appear important, not just in terms of distinguishing particular tastes and distastes, they are also used for their cathartic effect and for defending against persecution. In some jobs and at some times, dark humour is a coping mechanism. Whilst within more intimate confines of private relationships, insults as humour can create bonds and resist power. Can't think of an example of this quite now, though.
Don't put yourself down, you daft piece of daft thinker.
Insults in the form of humour, also as suggested, degrade, persecute, and maintain the status quo. This is demonstrated through, for example, studies on socialisation within extended families and communities, where nicknames and insults often demean and undermine individuals.
I'm still a mad ginger nut to some of my family, and I'll never forget being put down as a loser for not being sporty at school.
I can relate to that last one. And I also remember the driving instructor who asked me if I was thick or something after a couple of mistakes in my third ever lesson. I never did learn to drive. Within occupations, humour is also often used as a form of socialisation and to maintain hierarchical differences. As such, the response to distress at humorous insults at work is to toughen up, grow a pair, man up, get a thick skin.
Working in a medical school, I'm regularly reminded that my work as a sociologist is my knowledge, therefore myself, is soft and fluffy and kind of nice to know, not need to know.
What do you think of it so far?
Rubbish.
The private and public are connected and feed into each other. In the public arena, insults are the mainstay of comedy. From old school stand-up comics drawing on racist, religious, or mother-in-law stereotypes to alternative comedy and political satirists taking down the powerful. And yet all of this is again subjective and power-laden.
Yeah, just like that time I wrote to the BBC complaining about an item on the political comedy show, Have I Got News for You? And they dismissed my complaint and that of many others, replying that we obviously didn't understand satire.
Historical and cultural difference and changes are relevant here, including the influence of politicians and political grassroots movements on what is and is not acceptable comedy, on what is and what is not funny. So whilst it's okay for some it's okay to laugh at and to label those who need support and or refuge as liars, as lazy and more, or those who fight for social justice and sustainability, and to call them things like the loony woke left, for others, it is definitely not okay.
Indeed. Particularly interesting here is that for some, being insulting is their occupation, and success depends on honing a behaviour that in other circumstances might be defined as inappropriate, as petty, or as cruel.
So many examples of mean and nasty representations of older people, people with learning difficulties, and others living lives not considered ideal spring to mind here, all of which I find personally offensive.
Me too. In comedy and more generally, humorous insults are an image management tool used both to self-promote and project a positive self-image, and alternatively to respond to critique and or abuse from others, an attempt at a wittier or more sarcastic response to insults from others. Comedic insults, although often directed at others, may also be self-inflicted, self-deprecation for laughs.
As suggested, what some define as early teasing can be experienced as bullying, and it's extremely offensive and upsetting. Research highlights the prevalence of such behaviour in workplaces, in intimate relationships and friendships, and on social media.
Yeah, but can't you take a joke, Trace?
A comment which we know is often the fallback position of the insulter in an attempt to dismiss the seriousness of their behaviour, devalue any resistance, all whilst maintaining or attempting to gain control over another person or group. Conversely, some may take offence and feel insulted by others when the intention was genuinely to amuse, resulting in reflection and remorse from the offender. Oh, we haven't changed position for
Sorry, please. Reflecting on all of the issues outlined here, we're reminded of Kenny Everett, another UK comedian, and his claim that his humour was always in the best possible taste, which you might agree with, or indeed, if you're old enough to remember,
I bet they are.
reply with the retort or insult that his taste was in fact all in his mouth.
Thank you for listening and for bearing with our attempts at comedy. The issue is, of course, as we stated at the beginning of our presentation, a serious one. For, as we've shown, including through some of our own examples, insults as wit can have profound consequences for individuals and groups, impacting detrimentally on human action and experience.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very interesting, and yeah, I'm a little nervous, but because of your presentation, and I feel I can laugh. Yeah. So next, yeah, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before starting, I would like to acknowledge that I live and work on Kaurna land, Adelaide, belonging to Kaurna people. Can you please put my slides on? The title of my PhD that I'm right in the middle of it is Reconstruction of place-based cultural identity through everyday life, practice-based autoethnography. Very long title. And next slide, please. In my PhD, I'm trying to explore how I reconstruct my cultural identity through my everyday life after moving to Adelaide from Iran as a temporary migrant. And also, I'm trying to study how the state of temporariness affects my acculturation journey, and also what is the influence of reflective practice as the whole of my project on my journey. Next slide, please. In terms of contribution to the knowledge, I should confess that I'm not going to discover a new thing. I'm not going to discover or invent something. I'm just trying to see the complicated, multi-facted layers of the qualities within migration and temporary migration debates from a new perspective, and I'm just learning. And what I do is something I hope to just capture and sift the complicated qualities, like what people used to do, blowing cotton or wool. This is the way I could describe my contribution to the knowledge: blowing cotton or blowing wool pieces. Next slide, please. Borrowing Yuval Davis's words, I'm considering identity equal to narratives that we tell to ourselves and also to others about who we are not, and who we are not. And also, I'm considering culture as the way I live my life equal to my everyday life, which is also equal to my identity, somehow synonymous phenomena. And I'm seeing acculturation as a spectrum, as a dynamic, non-binary, non-linear process instead of static, fixed strategies as various acculturation strategies. And also I'm focusing on non-traditional, non-classic forms of migration, like temporary migration, sojourner, expat, and different variations of temporary migrants. Next slide, please. To answer my research questions, I'm using analytic autoethnography and reflective practice as my overarching methodologies. Analytic autoethnography, I mean the analytic autoethnography by Leon Anderson, that has 5 measures, and I'm trying to follow these requirements as far as I can. Autoethnography so far let me connect or bring together some opposite aspects of my project, like the objective me, subjective me, the science part of the project and art part of the project, and also the insider position of the researcher and outsider position, as I am not insider enough and I'm not outsider enough. I've been in Adelaide only for 1 year, so I cannot consider myself neither. And also it's connecting the Western world to the Eastern world. And it serves wonderfully to do ethnography and observation on a self that is classified as other. Reflective practice is my other overarching methodology and has major overlaps with analytic autoethnography because of the presence of self and also the process of reflection, the ever-going process of reflection, which is similar to what Karno people called the Diri, noticing, observing, hearing, and reflecting in silence. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is the diagram of my research. I, as all of the autoethnographic research, very narcissist way, in the center, and the northern hemisphere is me as the subjective me, as the researcher, and the southern one is researched objective me. The above, there are the things that I'm doing. I'm making artifacts, illustrated artifacts, and I'm keeping a journal. And in the southern one, there are things that I am studying, my migration, my everyday life, my cultural identity, and my acculturation journey. And the whole project can be summarized as creative practice, creative visual practice, which I'm going to showcase in the future, a few future slides. Next, please. And I'm saying that I'm reconstructing myself through journeys of discovery. And I'm doing these journeys of discovery through place, and time. Place as physical journeys that I do at my home, in the city, in the nature, and time, place in our imaginations, spiritual journeys, in our dreams, nightmares, or experiences like deja vus, or static moments of menstruation, the things that are not very specifically can fit in place or time, and journeys through time, which are my mental journeys in the past, present, future, even very far past, before I was born, in the genes that I have, nomadic genes that I have, nomadic genes. Next, please. Thank you. This is a picture of my backstage while I am sitting on the ground and doing the research, or in other words, making artifacts. And making selfies is a huge part of my practice. Next slide, please. This selfie is about the time that situation in Iran was getting worse and worse. People were killed as they were fighting for their freedom. And it's titled An Imagined We. I'm pointing to the definition that I had in my literature review, that nation is the imaginary we, an imaginary group. And I'm saying, if it was imaginary, how I could be so frustrated physically, mentally. And next slide, please. This is the screen, the famous screen, but it's me that wants to scream because of the all the letters in English, all the letters in Farsi, and my mother tongue, Azerbaijani, all the weekdays, and every structure and system that is different here and there. And I should have all of them and different variations of them on my mind at the same time. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here I'm talking about minority that act as a shelter for migrants. This is the only way that you can be understood and you can understand. And the point that I have on my foreground is my birthmark, but my camera is not on, so it's part of autoethnographic feature of the project that repeated in every selfie I have. Next slide, please. I'm not going to talk about them. You can just showcase them. Thank you so much.
I love your pictures. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dipak. I'm from Warwick University, doing my PhD on identity formation for police officers. I think it might be on the next slide. Ah, there we go. There we go. And I look at what happens when the body puts on the uniform, the conversation, interaction that takes place when a body in England puts on a police uniform. Sometimes if a body like mine puts on a uniform, you may have a different conversation compared to if a white male muscular big body puts on a uniform. So this is a vignette. I'll start off. 1999. How the uniform was never going to fit. What has changed since February 1999 when the Macpherson report was first published? Lord Macpherson's report was published as a consequence of an independent inquiry into the murder of Stephen Lawrence. Stephen Lawrence was murdered on 23rd April 1993. Stephen was a black male who was chased, attacked, stabbed multiple times and died, all for waiting for a bus in Eltham, Greenwich, London, allegedly at the wrong time and place. To this day, when I lay flowers at the place of his murder in remembrance each year, there's still a frightful energy and discomfort in the environment. It's one that still lingers 30 years on. It still evades unpacking, and ethnographic inquiry from sociology is lacking. Today, I'm not asking why. It's March 1999. I train hard. I go to the gym, run and do martial arts, but I can't put on weight. Why can't the uniform fit? I'm going to train harder, run further, kick and punch harder. The uniform still doesn't fit. What's going on? Is it because I'm not strong enough? Is it because I'm not man enough? Perhaps I'm just not sturdy enough. The deficit model. In uniform, there are days when my anxiety gets the better of me. And on those days, I either overwork myself, I think of everything as suspicious, or just don't want to engage with anyone. However, the times when I don't want to speak with anyone needs to be carefully managed. The way I cope is by engaging with familiar people. I engage with local criminals in the community, the ones I know. The buck, what's going on? What do you think? Are you seeking to belong to something but can't grasp conceptually? Is the belonging the uniform, the community, or a sense of identity? Which is it, the buck? Make your mind up, get over yourself, absorbed tendency. I take pride in my uniform. Ironing a single crease in the trousers is hard, not because accuracy is required. This is now second nature to me. I'm a dab hand at ironing uniforms. No, the trouble with the crease in my police uniform trousers is that because my trousers have a high wool content, a crease doesn't stay in. Like most of my uniform, my trousers are specially made, 28-inch waist and 31-inch leg. I'm told, oh, Dipak, no, oh, Dipak, it looks like we'll have to order some trousers in for you. We have a pair that we might be able to alter, but if it's not possible, we'll need to order you a couple of pairs. You'll need to come in again to collect yours. Sorry, no trouble at all. I replied, no trouble at all. Listen to my voice. No trouble at all. Close your eyes. Yep, close them. Now pause. Let them soften in their sockets. Is there a skin color attached to my voice? No trouble at all. I was born and educated in England, raised in Leicester. My legs don't touch the sides. My waist is barely visible. How is it possible that I can carry 28 pounds on my belt? How is it possible that I can run, wrestle, and control people, situations, and even disorder? How am I supposed to be a part of a unit if I barely qualify as a part? My shirt may be immaculately pressed, my epaulette numbers may be clearly visible, my name badge may be pinned, and my boots clean and polished, yet it is my equipment, my pocket notebook, my traffic contravention penalty book, my stop and search forms book that show most visibly, not my body. My arms are skinny, my legs are the same, my bum is flat, my neck is slender, and my head sticks out like a dandelion blowball. It may have splendor when observed closely and inquiringly. It may present as complex and in some ways resilient even. But in the event of even a slight adversarial breeze, all of its splendor is lost. The pappers catch the turbulence. The achenes may be capable of germinating, but it will never be whole again. Yes, I can fold in the face of ridicule and degeneration, but in the face of chaos, fright, and anger, and the unexpected, I can shine. Where a witness may not be able to identify the perpetrator, I can use art to generate a lead. Where drugs cannot be found in the location, I can decipher the suspect's body language to find out what to them is cleverly concealed. Experienced officers with 10, 15, 20 years experience may be frustrated, but I can also solve problems and sense subtle behaviors. What has changed? Finally, over 20 years after the incident, I was a police officer. I feel able to walk on some of the patch I used to patrol. As soon as I arrive in the area, my body is already triggered. My hands, my mind's eye once again sees smoke. I need to blink. I need to breathe. Pause and breathe. Okay, I look around for signs of smoke. My mind's nose can smell the heavy burnt body, recall its position in the nearby park I still dare not visit, and how it might have met its demise. How long ago? Evidence, 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 the book is then the mantra that hits me. I take a deep breath, move on, walk, one step in front of the other. Breathe more, the book. You're not wearing your high-tech branded, tightly fitted black patrol boots anymore. You don't need to be light on your feet with fleetness of foot. You don't need to heighten your senses. Breathe and step, breathe and step. Soften your shoulders and think of ethnography. On the main thoroughfare, I spot 3 police officers in the same location where they are patrolling in threes. I'd be on my own. My first down patrol in this area involved me filling a book of parking penalty tickets, search forms, and multiple requests for person and vehicle checks over the radio. I was tasked with making sure the locals felt my presence. I follow these officers for a little while from a distance and then catch up with them, stop them and chat. I schedule an interview with one of them. I can still recall their bright white smile, their clear brown skin, their neatly cut short hair, no domed hat, no chin strap. No chin strap means no palpable sign of public disorder, meaning less chance of suspicion before engagement. But what has changed? This is not enough. Brown skin and piercing blue eyes. It's all about the smell, they say. It's all about their smell, they say, as they beam at me, their legs outstretched, right arm resting on the desk, chest open, square facing me. They're in half supine position. Think super relaxed. Organic rosebud tea resting on the desk. I made them rosebud tea to drink. Do you know what quality rosebud tea has? I want them to smell me before they can even see me, they say. I want them to know I'm here. My cologne is strong, bold, out and proud. Psh, psh. When I see them later, out of uniform on a rest day, they are wearing contacts. Their eyes are now brown. I have much, much more on this. So my question to you is this. Is my experience of wearing the uniform relevant to how the uniform interacts with the body? This officer is not data. What would be the reasoning for excluding my understanding, knowledge and experience of wearing a uniform? Is analytical autoethnography the only way to go? Can a case be made for an evocative style of autoethnographic investigation? Thank you.